بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد وإنه في الكتاب لدينا لعلي حكيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this book as exalted, lofty, elevated, majestic. The Qaari of the Qur'an as well can have this status when they respect the Qur'an, they obey the Qur'an, they practice on the Qur'an and make tabligh of this sublime book. So in making tilawat as well, this intention should be made. It contains not words but worlds. Quran does not contain only words but it contains worlds. So the weakness is with us. No time to read, no time to practice, no time to propagate. As Hasan Basri rahimahullah used to say, لقد كان من تقدم يقرأ القرآن ويقوم بالصورة منه طول ليلته. The people of the past, when they used to make tilawat of Quran, they would spend the entire night. فإذا أصبح عرف ذلك في وجهه. This nur, this tajalli would be found in the morning when you would see their faces. وَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ وَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ لَا يَتَجَاوَزْ. And you people, you make tilawat of Quran, it doesn't even surpass your throat. It means it's just on your tongue and it's on your speech, but it's not in action. Wallahu subhanahu yaqul kitabun anzalnahu ilayka mubarakun liyadabbaru. This Quran has been revealed. Part of the purpose is to ponder on these ayat. So they would spend an entire night on one surah, pondering on the ayat. We don't even have time. Allah make us maaf, and that's our weakness. So we have to see what's our priority. The fact that Allah has given us Iman, Islam, Quran, these are ni'am and we need to value it. People value food. That's why they take out time, they go out. How much time traveling to the restaurant, then waiting for the order, then ordering, then waiting for the food, then when it comes consuming it. How much time just for the stomach? How much time are we giving priority to things that's not a priority? How many hours people spend on gaming? How much time they spend on television, on social media, on sports? I'm busy at work, passing time, no time for Allah. Even in the ibadat and the time that should be dedicated for Allah, we don't even have that time. When we make tilawat of Quran, we're rushing. When we go into the masjid, we last in the masjid and first out. When we read salah, we read the shortest surahs. We read the shortest tasbih. We don't even know the adiyah for qawma and jalsa. Hazrat Ali used to say, إِنَّ مِن نَعِيمِ الدُّنْيَا يَكْفِيكَ الْإِسْلَامِ نِعْمَةً. The bounty of Islam is sufficient compared to all bounties of the world. Allah has given me Iman, I am chosen, I am special. I need to value this. What darkness a person would have been in kufr, in shirk, in disbelief, in polytheism. Allah has brought the nur of Islam. وَإِنَّ مِنَ الشُّغْلِ يَكْفِيكَ طَاعَةُ شُغْلًا. Obedience to Allah is sufficient as an occupation. If we really had a job, if we really had an occupation, if we really had a task, an ambition was to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْعِبْرَةِ يَكْفِيكَ الْمَوْتُ عِبْرَةً. And death is a sufficient lesson. We are hearing of people dying all the time, janazas upon janazas. But have we really made the change? So part of the change is jama'at. People are going out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-khuruj fi sabilillah, thalathat ayyam, arba'at ashur. Different times to go out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To go with those people who are sacrificing for Allah. If we have to hunt two people, one is a mufti. Choose one mufti in your life and then put a knife into shaitan in this life when you choose the mufti. Every masla only resort and revert to him. And secondly is take a bad pledge allegiance on somebody's hands, the ahlullah, those people who will remind us of Allah, those who have found Allah. Thanwi used to say something with regards to this. He said that you can have all the knowledge, but ilm without suhbat, company of the pious, is not beneficial. The reformation of a person with suhbat, good company, and ilm is easier compared to a person with ilm and no suhbat, company. Sahaba were not ulama, they were not all alims, but they achieved through suhbat. And the Ahlullah have always taken care and given importance to suhbat. So they concentrated more on suhbat rather than the apparent knowledge. That is not even there. People go to madrasa, maktab, they finish study, assalamu alaikum deen, and the chapters of deen are closed. Wherever I've studied many years, decades of their lives, and asked, they say our occupation is we are students. So we think we in deen. I read my 5 times salah, I've done my hajj, I'm done, I'm sorted. No, we're very far from that. We're very far. It seems like we're there, but we're very far from the reality. Like a woman told her friend, I made my husband a millionaire. I made him a millionaire. So the friend said, and what was he before you married him? What was he before you married him? He said, a billionaire. So where the story is, where you think so, the accolade is, and where you see the flaw. It sounded good, but eventually it's not good. So Quran is there, Ali elevated. We have to make this niyyah that Allah should elevate us through this Quran. And part of that is Al-Khalqu Iyalullah, the creation of the family of Allah. So we can fulfill the haqq of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Like somebody, a person said something and they hurt their best friend. So they had the regrets. They wanted to take back the words. It was done impulsively without any real thought and consideration. So he went to the villager, the wise old man in the village, explaining to the situation to say that this is what happened and I've hurt their feelings tremendously and I didn't mean to say all of this here. How do I correct this situation? So the wise man said, there are 2 things that you need to do to make amends. And the first 2 is very difficult. Take your best feather pillows, open a small hole in each one, then before the sun rises, put a feather on the doorstep of every person in the town. When you are done, then you come back to me. Until you're not done, don't come back. I'll tell you the second when you come. So he went, he did all of that, spent the entire night in the cold, fingers frozen, wind was sharp, and all this difficulty concluded. Then in the morning returned to the wise man and waiting for the reward. So my pillows are empty and I've placed a feather on each doorstep of every home. Now you need to go back and refill your pillows exactly as you done last night. Tonight you need to do the same thing as well. So he was stunned. He said, it's impossible. The wind would have blown away all the feathers as soon as I placed them on the doorsteps. You didn't tell me to go immediately. So if you say this is a condition, then it won't happen. So the wise man said, likewise, as you are true in this, remember each of your words is like a feather in the wind. unspoken amount of effort, regardless of how heartfelt, how sincere. I feel so bad. How could I have said that? How could I have done that? You cannot return them to your mouth, so choose your words well. Guard them most of all, especially in front of those who are your beloveds. So a person who's making tilawat of Quran, they're busy, their tongues are busy in good things. They wouldn't have time for everything else. And they would be making amal on the Quran. So Quran is a means of honor for us and the ummah as well. Inna likulli shayin sharafan yatabahawna bihi. There's always a thing in which people take pride, definitely. Wa inna baha'a ummati wa sharafaha al-Quran. The glory and the pride of my ummah is in the Quran. So in the world, people take pride on their nobility, on dignity, on status, on lineage, on family, on possessions. They show off certain things and they take pride on their possessions. I own this. Nowadays, zamana, you don't own it and you show it. At least in the past, people, what they had, they boasted about it. Now what people don't even own, they make a show of it. So how much honor is a person who reads the Quran, memorizes the Quran, teaches the Quran, everything connected to the Quran. This is the words connected to Allah. So we cannot fathom the greatness and the splendor, the dignity Allah has kept in the Quran, in this world and in the year after as well. And everything of the Quran is perfect, whether it's the coherence, whether it's the words, whether it's the different incidents, the prophecies. The list is endless. In the worldly terms, when we have any book, any occupation, you will get tired of it. You will have some poetry, but if not the 10th, then the 100th time, you will get tired of it. But the Quran is such, you can go over it 1,000 times. How many times in our life have we read Surah Al-Fatiha? But that's the miracle of the Quran, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept, this ecstasy and pleasure, the satisfaction which no money can buy. So Quran is honorable, the book of Allah is honorable, it's filled with honor. We need to honor the Quran, and honoring the Quran is making tilawat of Quran, making amal on the Quran, and making tabligh of the Quran. Abu Dhar came to Nabi alayhi salam and said, Ya Rasulullah, awsini, give me some advice. Alayka bitaqullah, cultivate the fear, the reverence of Allah in your heart. فَإِنَّهُ رَأْسُ الْأَمْرِ, because it's the root of all virtuous deeds. Then I said, Ya Rasulullah, zidni, O Nabi of Allah, add something more to your advice. Anything else? Alayka bitilawatil Qur'an, stick to a recitation of the Quran. فَإِنَّهُ نُورٌ لَكَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَذُخْرٌ لَكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ. There's a nur in this life and a provision for the year after. So Quran is a nur, it's a light. We are drawing this light. How we'll see the stars, the inhabitants of the heavens see us that are reciting the Quran, and we shine. So when a person connects to the Quran, they connecting to Allah. When you connected to Allah, then you've got the strongest connection on earth. Then when you have any needs also, you'll turn to Allah. You won't even turn to the creation. You won't even desire anything of the creation. And that's the power of Quran. Qaari Sayyid Muhammad Mubaarak, Balgrami, was a student of Hazrat Shaykh Abdul Haq Dahlawi, was a son of Maulana Nurul Haq. And he traveled from Balgram to Delhi, and he stayed with Maulana Nurul Haq, where he studied Tajweed, Qiraat, Hadith, Fiqh and other subjects. And after he completed, he returned back to his town and he devoted his life to teaching the Quran. And he kept the secret between him and Allah, where he dedicated his life to the Quran, and he went through utter difficulty and very severe poverty. And he had a outstanding student who was Maulana Tufail Ahmad. And he mentioned that one day after teaching until Dhahar, my Ustad, the Sheikh Muhammad, he stood up to make wudu, perform wudu, and he fainted. So I ran and tried to make sure he is okay. And after he gained consciousness, which was an hour later, I asked him what had happened, and he avoided my question but repeatedly asked, and he replied after insistence that he had not eaten for 3 days and he fainted due to weakness. So then the student said, I started crying when I heard this. How ghafil, how inattentive, how heedless was I in front of my starving Ustad for 3 days, and I could not even notice it. So I went home, I told my family to prepare whatever food my Ustad loved, and when I returned I saw his face beaming with delight and dua. And then now look at the qualities that Allah had given these people. So I said, if you don't mind, can I tell you something? He said, no problem. He said, in the Sufia, in their terminology, it's called Ishraf. When you desire something and in your heart there's desire, you don't bring it on your tongue, but something that's in the heart that you desire. So when you stood up to leave, I desired in my heart that you return with food. So although fiqh in the Masail, you ask the scholars, they say it is permissible, there's nothing wrong, the food is permissible. But with regards, he was referring to the awliya and the ahlullah, the Sufya, that according to their mazhab, the salikin, that you should not eat this food at all. So the student, knowing his ustad and his steadfastness, he picked up the food, left, didn't discuss, debate, nothing. He went outside, waited for a while, and then returned. And he placed the food on for his ustad now, and he asked him a question. When I left with the food, did you have a desire in your heart that I would return with it? So he said, no, I had no intention whatsoever. So he said, where's this food now has come to you? No hope, no desire, there's no constitution. You cannot categorize it as ishraf if you eat it. So now you can partake of the food. So the ustad was amazed at the student's brilliance, and he congratulated him on this insight and this intellect. So how the people of the Quran of the past, they would not accept anything, not even desired from their heart, even though it was their students, they never asked for it, and they were fainting, falling unconscious out of starvation. So, Ulaika abai, these were the people of the past. We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us these qualities and these sifat needed. The amal for today is to read salat with Jamaat in the masjid, and if we are in these three Mubaarak places, Makkatul Mukarrama, Madinatul Munawwara and Masjid Aqsa, then to read salat in the masjid as far as possible, not to read anywhere else or in any surrounding masajid. فضل الصلاة في المسجد الحرام على غير 100,000 صلاة, so 100,000 times مكة المكرمة, وفي مسجد 1000 صلاة, 1000 times مدينة المنورة, وفي مسجد بيت المقدس 500 صلاة, 500 times. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.